is Chicago's Morning Answer.
See, in this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns, and those who dig. You dig.
On AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. The Civic Committee of the Commercial Club of Chicago. Its chairman is Fred Waddell, Northern Trust chairman of the board. That's where the rich people like Amy keep their money.
Yeah, right. No, I go to BMO Harris.
Scott Santee, ITW chairman, was the vice chairman of the Civic Committee. Kelly Welsh is the president. Carlos Allegretti from Deloitte, Larry Barden, Sidley Austin. Melissa Bean, former congresswoman, now chairman of the Midwest for J.P. Morgan Chase. Of course she is.
Yeah, Phil Crane's seat, remember?
She's a financial whiz. Greg Brown, Motorola, Lazar. John Canning, Madison Dearborn. Oh,
wow, that's very impressive.
Genuflection is in order. Oh, yes. Patrick Canning, KPMG, David Casper, BMO. James Coleman, Accenture, Sean Connolly, Conagra, Christopher Crane, Exelon, the Crown family, of course. Duchessois, Craig, Mary Dillon, Alta Beauty. McDonald's Corporation, Stephen Easterbrook, President, CEO. Ty Fainer, Mayor Brown. Michael Farrow, the publishing impresario, would be. Tom Fitzgerald, chairman of Winston & Strawn, who I used to caddy for at Chicago Golf.
Oh, nice guy.
Yeah, he is. He's a nice guy. Zurich, North America. Goldman Sachs represented. Citadel, Ken Griffin. Dean Harrison, Northwestern Memorial. Tim Killeen, president of U of I. PricewaterhouseCoopers, Boston Consulting Group, AT&T, Bank of America. Ernst & Young, Rush University Medical Center, AbbVie, Kirkland & Ellis. Discover, United, Boeing, People's Gas, Morningstar, Tribune, Grainger, ADM, Allstate, Mesro. Why am I telling you all this? All these names you don't know. Most of them you don't know. Companies, big companies. Because these are our business icons. These are the smartest people that we have to offer, most accomplished. They're our betters. They decide who is in public office, and we defer to their decisions. And when they come up with an idea, we say thank you and immediately implement it. So I just want to give credit where credit's due for our next thank you. Their call to increase Illinois state income tax from 4.95% to 5.95%, to increase the corporate tax rate from 7 to 8%,
Oh, my goodness.
and to start taxing both your retirement income
Ooh.
and some consumer services that are not currently taxed.
Retirement income as in pensions, too?
Yes, that will. Yeah, absolutely. Retirement income. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you to all of the multimillionaires and billionaires I just read off. They got your back. They got your back in Chicago and Illinois. I'll tell you, I got a difficult time, really having a difficult time these days distinguishing from these business leaders, my betters, your betters, and the public sector union bosses. I mean, they're interchangeable. A coalition of Marxists and public sector union bosses, I repeat myself, has a proposal as well to complement the Civic Committee's proposal. It's wonderful they can ham and egg this. What they want to do, CTU, Chicago Teachers Union, SEIU, the Purple People Beaters, and the rest of them, institute a new city of Chicago income tax of 3.5% on your household, and then anybody making over 100 grand a year. So that you go from 4.9 to 5.9, 4.95 to 5.95 the state, then you get a 3.5% kicker if you live in Chicago and you make over 100 grand. They also
What would this extra revenue go toward?
stuff, great things,
Oh, okay.
wonderful things. Don't worry about
They're
it.
going to line the streets with gold? I mean,
Employer head tax, that's got to be reinstituted.
of course.
That's pro-business. Tax on LaSalle Street, the financial transactions tax.
Would commuter tax too, I hope?
Get rid of those pesky exchanges and all the insurance and banking associated.
And this is a pro-business group?
Well,
These ideas seem like they would just
what's the difference?
topple.
What's the difference between the CEOs and the public sector union bosses? Same policies.
Yeah.
I don't see any difference. That's what Chicago has. It has an anti-business business magazine in Cranes. It's got an anti-business business group in the Civic Committee of the Commercial Club. Oh, and they want to open up their own bank, too.
Oh, that's right, to handle these funds.
Handle bond issues.
And 401ks.
What could go wrong? Oh, meanwhile, as much criticism as Willie Wilson gets for giving away his own money from these feudal lords and
helping
deep
people
thinkers,
pay their property tax.
these men and women of letters and accomplishment.
Yeah.
Amaya Pawar is who's running for city treasurer. Your alderman.
That's my guy.
Wants to pay 1,000 residents $1,000 a month, just cause. It's $12 million a year to start. That he's proposing
for doing what? Just being poor. We're going to give them $1,000.
No, just being themselves. And he doesn't have the details yet. Unspecified mix of city funds and philanthropic dollars. Yeah, okay. At least Willie uses his own money, as I said. They're taking on that end, and then they're just giving away on the other. See, connect the dots for you. Oh, and by the way, Will Gazzardi, who's a Marxist state rep from Bronzeville neighborhood, he wants Chicago to be able to institute rent control.
Oh, rent too high?
The rent's
too
high.
damn high?
Yeah.
Remember that guy from New York?
Yeah, but the rent's too damn high in New York because of rent control.
Yeah, exactly.
For more on all of these happy goings-on, we're joined by somebody who's obviously not as deep a thinker as all of these CEOs and public sector union bosses that we all support, we all defer to, we all kneel before. But he's got some thoughts. He's Ted Dabrowski. He's the president of WirePoints.com. Ted, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning, Dan, Amy.
Morning.
Hi.
So which is your favorite plan? Rent control, the $1,000 a month for being you, the Civic Committee's plan, or the public sector union boss's plan?
Well, I don't know why you're asking me to pick one. I think they all belong in the package, and
True.
That's their proposal.
Absolutely. Think of the multiplier effect if you did all of them together.
Yeah, then we'd be spending a lot more money, and the economy would grow more. Dan, what's amazing about everything you laid out is, you laid out the civic titans. These are the biggest investors, the guys who make the economy grow in Chicago and Illinois. In their own private businesses with their own money, they would never take their money and put it into something so corrupt, so bankrupt, so ill-governed, unless they were able to fire all the guys, everybody, clean house. They wouldn't ever put a penny until they had everything perfect. But they want taxpayers, ordinary residents who are struggling every day, to take their money and give it to the likes of a Chicago government, the likes of an Illinois government, and just say, hey, yeah, everything will be fine. Just spend more. It's absurd that our civic titans would ask us to do that.
And what do you make of them wanting to start their own bank?
Well, yeah, it's just another way of funneling money in the way that they want, and as opposed to under the rules of the government rather than under a private sector owners. So it's crazy.
And this is another fun one. I don't want to leave Mary Flowers out. Tiny Dancer did this big press event yesterday, attended to Ford announcing $1 billion in investment in plants in Chicago.
Yeah, they're going to up the ante on the two plants that are here and create a stamping plant.
Mary Flowers has legislation in Springfield to prevent the state from investing any of its pension funds in Ford because of some of the sexual harassment complaints they had to deal with a couple of years ago.
Oh my
They're making a
gosh.
$1 billion investment here, and Mary Flowers is saying, we will not invest in Ford, and we will not invest pension funds in Ford
Because
stock.
of that was so long ago.
I mean, this is
That's been litigated. That's
when you run an entire government on just kind of competitive virtue signaling. That virtue signaling sort of runs into other virtue signaling. You got a bit of a mess here. Ted, I know you and Mark Lennon over at wirepoints.com have written extensively about this. And we had on the show a couple weeks ago Ed Backrack, who's written a book called The New Chicago Way with Austin Berg from the Illinois Policy Institute, laying out comparisons to what other big cities do, big Democrat-controlled cities do, that Chicago could do to improve. Maybe it's not best practices, but it's better practices. And I guess my question for you and for Mark and for Ed and for Austin and for John Cass and Kristen McQuarrie is why even bother? Why do I bother talking about it? Why do you bother writing about it anymore?
Well, it's becoming pretty clear, and I'll give you the big reason why. And you know it well, and we're seeing families who find that the math doesn't work anymore. They're leaving here in droves, and Moody's finally wrote about it the other day, where they're warning, okay, you can do tax hikes if you want, but people are leaving in droves, and this could accelerate it. And so the reason we're talking about it is it's only a matter of time before this math stops working. And I know we've talked about it for a long time, but at some point the city and the state won't be able to keep doing the games they're doing. And when that time comes, Dan, and I know that's why you do this, when the time comes, we've got to be ready to pick up the pieces and rebuild Illinois in the right way, Chicago in the right way, with the right policy so that we can compete with all the other states. Today we're dead last in so many things, but it doesn't mean that tomorrow we can't be. It's just a question of when the finances stop working, people stop buying the bonds, and then we finally pick up the pieces and do things better.
If you were handicapping it, what do you think is the most likely watershed moment that will come to pass?
Well, there's a couple. One is, we don't know if and when a recession comes, but if we had a big, strong recession, the numbers won't work anymore. And they certainly, if they try to keep things going at Illinois, it won't work for Rockford. It won't work for Kankakee. It won't work for places like North Chicago. That's the recession is the big one, and that would be coincided with people stopping buying bonds. Oak Lawn, for example, is one notch away from junk rating. Illinois is one notch away from junk rating. At some point, those investment-grade funds won't be able to buy the bonds in Illinois, and it'll be a bunch of vulture funds competing to lend money to Illinois because it's ugly.
If you were the incoming mayor of Chicago or Governor J.B., not what they will do or will even contemplate doing, but what would you do in their position, sort of first order of business, either at the city or state level?
Well, I think one of the first things you have to do is send a signal that things are different, because anything you read about Illinois is all negative, and so you need to change the mentality. And I think you'd have to push for a constitutional amendment because that's your number one signal that you're going to fix pensions. That's number one. Number two, and this would be crazy, and they would never do it, is until you change these collective bargaining agreements, we keep spending more and more money. And that's why we need all these tax hikes to pay more and more salaries and more pensions. You've got to stop that and give the taxpayers back the power rather than giving the power to the unions all the time. So number two would be a changing in our collective bargaining regime. It's one of the strictest in the nation. It's why taxpayers lose and unions win every single time.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this is an underappreciated thing you said in terms of changing the mentality. Ludwig von Mises famously said, "He who wants to improve conditions must propagate a new mentality, not merely a new institution." Everybody in both parties running around talking about new programs, new institutions, but you have to change the mentality to change the culture, to change the policy making, to change the policymakers. I think that's spot on. He's Ted Dabrowski, president at wirepoints.com. Ted, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.